All right, so I'm on Blackboard. If you go to the drug calc workshop, you scroll down to drug calculation practice, and then go to practice drug calc exam online version. One of the things that you want to pay attention to is it tells you some specific things. It says read each question carefully, answer the numeric answer only. So if your answer is 2.5 milligrams, make sure you put 2.5 only. And then for half dosages, use the decimal answer. Typically on your Blackboard test, they should give you some specific information about that. And I'll show you what happens when, well, at least I'll see what happens when we check on that and if it gives me, if it kicks back the wrong answer. So I'm going to hit begin. You can take this as many times as you need to. I don't know if it's always in the same order. I assume that it is. But if it's not, then um, then just be extra practice in a randomized version. But I do think it comes out the same answer. So a couple of these are just straightforward converting. Um, some students are still kind of working through this just as extra practice. One of the things that I do when I'm looking at this is if I'm going from milligrams to grams, I know I'm moving my decimal over 1, 2, 3 places. So my answer is going to be 1.5 grams, and that's what I'm going to type in here. If you're not 100% certain about doing it that way, remember you can always use dimensional analysis, where you can just, and all you're doing is a simple conversion. You're converting milligrams for grams, and you know that 1 gram is equivalent to 1,000 milligrams, and you just take 1,500 divided by 1,000, and then you'll get the 1.5. Same thing here. When I'm going from micrograms to milligrams, I'm going to move my decimal 3 to the left, and I want to make sure I have my leading 0.25, and then that's my answer. Same setup here, 250 micrograms times, we don't want micrograms, we want milligrams, and 1 milligram is equal to 1,000 micrograms. So I won't, go through all of those every single time, but I just want to, if you're ever struggling with those, just know that there is a strategy to answer those questions. And as long as you're getting a consistent answer, that's all that matters. Yes, you'll have scratch paper. Yes, you'll have a calculator when you take this test. So just keep that in mind. All right. So for this one, we said it was 1.5. For this one, it's 0.25. Now, I will tell you, if you type in 0.25, that answer is wrong, okay? So you want to make sure you have your leading 0.25, because they will mark it wrong. And then same thing here. If you put 2 zeros at the end here, they will mark that answer wrong, okay? And you will miss it because you're not supposed to be using lagging zeros or trailing zeros, and you're not supposed to be using, and you are supposed to use a leading zero if you have a number less than 1. So just reminding you of that. You'll notice that this will auto save, but always double check your work. You'll have time to do that. This one, I'm not going to write anything out. I'm just going to take the 165 divided by 2.2, and I'm going to get 75. Now I'm going to write kilograms just because I want to show you what happens, what it looks like when it's wrong. Then 117 divided by 2.2. Now this one, I'm going to get 53.18181818. This is one of the things they're trying to get you to practice is rounding. So if it's 53.18, and let me just write that out so you can see. So if we have 53.1818, just keeps going. You look at the 8, okay, or you look at the hundredths place. If the hundredths place is 5 or greater, you round up. If it's 4 or fewer, then you leave it alone. You don't round up, but you're always going to go to the nearest 10th. So you round that to the 53.2. Believe it or not, the rounding, especially at this stage, It's commonly missed. A lot of students, for some reason, want to put the do a whole number, but you're not supposed to do a whole number. They tell you explicitly to round to the nearest tenth. Same thing for this one. I'm just going to take 182 divided by 2.2. And again, I'm going to get a number that looks like 82.7272, just keeps repeating. So what I'm going to do is the same strategy. I'm going to look in the hundreds place. That's a 2. That number is less than 5. So I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to round that up. I'm going to leave it as 82.7. Like I said, don't round that up to the nearest whole number. You might round to the nearest whole number later on. In other, like, especially when you're like in real world and you're, working, and that's just the scale that you follow. But at CCAC, they want you to practice rounding rules. All right. 200 milliliters to ounces. There are 30 milliliters per ounce. So I'm going to take 200 divided by 30, and I'm going to get 6.6 repeating. So again, I'm going to follow the same rule because we're going from the metric system milliliters to the US standard ounces. So we're just going to round that number to 6.7. Here, 350 ml, we're going to convert milliliters to liters. I'm going to move my decimal over 3. Don't forget your leading 0. You need that placeholder 0, otherwise it will get marked wrong. And then you have to remediate if you do that too many times. Don't put yourself in that hole. All right, 30 milliliters is how many teaspoons? So 1 teaspoon is 5 milliliters. So I'm going to take 30 divided by 5, and I'm going to get 6 teaspoons. Again, as I'm going through any of these, if there's ones that you want to see work through or you're just not 100% certain on, just either type it into the chat, unmute and message me. If you're watching this on the recording, you can even leave a comment on and I will respond in the comments. Excuse me. All right. Then 2.5 tablespoons to milliliters. 1 tablespoon is 15 milliliters. So I'm just going to take 2.5 times 15. And that gives me 37.5 milliliters. So we'll just leave it at that. We don't need to, again, we don't need to round that up. Give me 1 second here. All right. Ounces to milliliters. 1 ounce is equal to 30 milliliters. So I'm going to take 1.5 times 30, and I'm going to get 45 milliliters. All right, this is these fluid replacement questions I went over, I think on Thursday. I just posted that review today. So if you didn't see that, but that's okay. We can work through this real quick and show you how to do these two if you didn't see this yet or haven't figured out how to do this. So what I'm going to do is the simplest way, and this will make a lot more sense when you look at the previous review session. I'm going to look at my actual output, and I'm going to put that over my expected output. So I'm going to do 500 over 125, and then I'm going to multiply by my replacement volume. So how that looks is I'm going to take my 500 over my 125 times my 40, and then we're going to get our answer, which I believe is 160. So 500 divided by 125 is 4 times 40. Excuse me, is 160. And then before I put my answer, I'll go ahead and do the same thing here. So I'm going to follow the same process. So here's my output. Here's my expected output. and here's my replacement volume. So 400 milliliters over 100 milliliters times my replacement volume. And then again, that's 4. So 4 times 30 is 120 milliliters. So then I would just add my answers here. 160, 120. And then remember, you don't need to worry about the milliliters when you're doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my writing. And like I said, these formulations will make a lot more sense when you go back and look at it. If you're not 100% certain where I'm getting this information from, you'll be able to see what I did there and how I set that up and how I came up with that actual output over the expected output times replacement volume. Excuse me. All right. These are pretty straightforward. Okay. So most students already innately know how to answer these types of questions with the medication plus the the capsules. So the thing you want to pay attention to is make sure if it's per dose that you're calculating per dose. If it's per day, then you calculate per day. Okay, so even when there is no ML after the answer box, like it was for the other questions, we're not correct. Yeah, because it said to only put the numerical answer. So just put the numerical answer there. Like they don't have it, like they have it here, but the question had it listed here, milliliters, milliliters. So you don't need to include, again, you still don't include it because it said collectively don't put the units in. And you'll see right now as it's going, I should miss this question. I should miss question 3 once we're all said and done. All right, so if it's 500 is the order, and then it does say by mouth twice a day, but I only care about per dose, so I just care about the 500. So 250 milligram, so I'm going to give them 2 capsules per dose. So again, just write 2. And then it tells you how many capsules. So you don't need to put capsules in there. The other thing, and one of the reasons why I think they do this too, is because some students will write capsules. Some students will write caps. Some students will write cap. Okay. Some students will put no space when they write it. And so I think that just helps to eliminate the issues with the units. You will get plenty of practice with units when you are doing these problems later on in when you're doing the paper test starting next semester. All right, so this one is not asking you to label anything or not asking you to answer anything. It's asking you to mark on the cup. Usually when they key the cup, the markings will be like, let's say this is the answer. So like it'll usually encompass this like range. So you have some flexibility, but I always say mark it on the line is probably the best way to answer that. So whatever that happens to be. All right. So what I'm going to do is it says that I have potassium chloride elixir, 40 milliequivalents mixed with juice. 20 milliequivalents per 50 ml is available. How many ml will you administer for 1 dose? So I'll go ahead and I'll work out how to solve this problem, and then we'll mark the cup just in case. This one sometimes can be tricky because they're using milliequivalents instead of milligrams, but you're just going to treat it the same way. So I'm going to just use ordered over available. So my order is 40 milliequivalents. My available is 20 milliequivalents. And then my quantity is the 15 ml. So 40 over 20 is 2 times 15 is 30 ml. All right, so let's mark our syringe. we're going to come here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to drop, and all we do is click where we want to drop it. So the answer is 30. Okay. But let's say I accidentally like put my mark here, and you might want to move it, but it says, oh, you can only do that. You can only put it once. Just clear the selection, and then you can start over. So there's a clear button here if you want to clear the image, and then put it. I try and put it right there in the middle, and that should be good. All right. This question, you saw this question in the paper review, similar question. The order is 250 milligrams. It asks you how many teaspoons to administer based off of the label here. And so when you're doing this, there's two ways you can set this up if you're working through this. You can take your order, which is the 250, over your available, which is the 125. You can find out how many milliliters that is. So that's one method. Or if you remember that 1 teaspoon is equal to 5 milliliters, you could also just substitute this, and I can just say 250 over 125 times 1 teaspoon. And you're going to get 2 teaspoons. Here you get 10 ml. But here you get 2 teaspoons, and this is what you want. This is the answer you're looking for. If you write 10, you're going to get it wrong. They're looking for the answer 2. Now, the other thing is, just because you see dilantin question doesn't mean it's always in teaspoons. So make sure you're reading the question carefully, because sometimes they will trick you, not intentionally. They just want to make sure you're reading the question, and they'll ask you how many milliliters will you administer, and it's the same problem. So we're going to put 2 here. All right. Same setup here. Now, I think this is supposed to be a QID, so I don't think GID exists. So I think that was just a typo. But the 150 milligrams, I'm going to put that over the 125 milligrams per 5. And then, like I said, I'm not going to write all these out. So I'm just going to say 150 divided by 125 times 5. And I'm going to get an answer of 6. So how many milliliters will you administer? 6. For the nystatin question, it says 150,000 units, swish and swallow, QID. How many milliliters will you administer per 1 dose? And then when we look at the label, we can see the label says that we have 100,000 units per milliliter. So all I'm going to do is just take my 150,000 units, that's my order, over my available 100,000, and then times 1, and that'll be my answer. And so that should be 1.5, but I'm going to double check. So 150,123 divided by 100,000, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and I get 1.5 mil. But we're just going to write or type 1.5. All right. For number 18, says the physician orders Valium, 2.5 milligrams for anxiety. You have 5 milligram tablets of Valium available. How many tablets will you give per 1 dose? So this is that one where they don't want you to write half. Okay. If you write that, it'll be marked wrong. And the reason is because the key is written like this, 0.5. Okay. In reality, if they tell you that you can use half, or it doesn't give you that explicit answer, you might want to ask for clarification how they want it. And I would say ask that before you take the test. That way, because there is nuance on that, and I would say it's not fair that you missed something because you didn't know how they wanted you to write it, even though you got the same answer. So just make sure you clarify with your instructor Do you want us to write 1/2, or do you want us to write 0.5 if we have a half answer, or half in our answer, or a half answer? Yes. So like same thing, if you had like 1.5 tablets, you would still need to answer that question. This question is another marking the cup. So it's very similar to what we saw previously, where you can clear if you put the marking in the wrong spot. This one adds a little complexity because it's ordered in grams, but the available is in milligrams. So all we're going to do is convert grams to milligrams. So instead of 0.375 grams, we're going to convert that to milligrams. So I'm just going to move my decimal point over 3. And so 0.375 grams is equivalent to 375 milligrams. So 375 milligrams over 125 milligrams, and then that number times 5 will give us our answer. So again, using the calculator, 375 divided by 125 is 3 times 5. So my answer would be 15 ml. So this time, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to test this and just see. So I'm going to mark this at 15 and just see if I still get if I still get it marked correct, or if it gets marked wrong. And that way you can kind of see what happens if you choose the wrong answer, or if it doesn't matter. I have a feeling it won't matter. All right, digoxin, 0.75 milligrams. It's available in either 125 micrograms, or, and you see in parentheses, that's not times, that's or 0.125 milligrams. So if it's ordered in milligrams and you have the label available in milligrams, use the milligram to milligram comparison, or you can convert milligrams to micrograms, and then you can still get you can still work it out that way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug into my calculator 0.75 divided by 0.125, and then that's going to be 6 tablets. Seems like a lot. Excuse me. All right. Cimetidine or Tagamet, the order is 8.8 grams. You can see the label is 400 milligrams. So it wants to know how many tablets per dose. So 0.8 grams, when we convert that to milligrams, becomes 800 milligrams. So 800 over 400 is 2. I said some of these are pretty straightforward, but if you're getting stuck on, you know, like, or sometimes you get the wrong answer anytime you're doing these, those are perfect things to ask, or at least work through and practice and make sure you're not making those mistakes, especially going into the test in a couple weeks. You have 12 days. So, all right, you saw this question or similar question on the paper test, the paper practice test, 400 milligrams by mouth, TID, which is 3 times per day. How many milliliters will you give per dose? So just make sure we know 1 dose. So this tells me I have 400 is the order, 250 is my available, my quantity is 5. So I'm just going to take 400 divided by 250. Whoops, I did not divide. 400 divided by 250 times 5. And I'm going to get 8 milliliters. Oops. Remember, we don't want to write that. See, even I make that mistake because I'm tempted to write the unit, but they tell you specifically don't. Here's another dropping on the this thing's called a Tubex. So we're going to pay attention to the order, 75 milligrams. We have this pre-filled syringe, and it tells us that the Demerol is 50 milligrams per milliliter. So I'm just going to do 75 divided by 50 times 1, which is 1.5. So I'm just going to drop my point right here at 1.5. Again, I don't know if it matters if you're on the number or on the line, but we're going to see when we get the feedback for our answers here, my answers. Okay, a couple more questions. This might be, yeah, this is another tagging question. So it says the order is heparin 2,500 units. How many milliliters we administer per one dose? And then you can see that what's available is 5,000 units. So I'm just going to take 2,500 divided by 5,000. Remember, it's always the order over what you have available. So don't reverse that, because then you'll get the wrong answer. The other thing is, if you had reversed it, you would have an answer of 2. Where would you mark your syringe? There is no 2, okay? But there is a 0.5, and this one's a little bit tricky, right? Because it tells you 0.2, and then there's 0.468. So you have to look for in between the numbers. So this is 0.2, it's probably 0.25, 0.3, 0.35, 0.4, 0.45, 0.5 is going to be right here. Okay, no problem. Thanks for letting me know. This will be up when I'll finish it, and it'll be posted on YouTube. All right. For the morphine, 45 milligrams is ordered. You have this morphine available. So all we're going to do is take the order, 45 milligrams, and then put it over the available 25. So this is actually an example of a of a reconstitution question, in that they tell you the 250 milligrams, but then they also give you the convert, or the this concentration of the medication on the label. So this is actually helpful for you. So all we're going to do is take the 45 divided by 25, and we're going to get 1.8 mil. So I'm just going to write 1.8. I think there's 2 more questions. Another morphine question. This time it's available as you'll see 10 milligrams per 10 ml. And then in parentheses, it gives you the reduced same concentration of 1. So if it's 1 milligram per milliliter and the order is 5 milligrams, then the answer is just 5 ml. All right. And then lastly, this is just a sliding scale question. Tells you your patient's blood glucose level is 200. We're going to look on the sliding scale, and it says the 200 range is here with the 2 units. So we're just going to do 2. I thought I was done. There's another question. So you just read. This is not supposed to be tricky. It's just, can you read data on a scale? All right, finally, this is just asking you to choose the correct syringe. So you don't have to do anything with this. Sometimes it'll ask you, like, choose the correct syringe and mark the units, but this shouldn't matter too much, like where you choose this. But anytime you're doing a unit syringe, you always want to use, or anytime you're calculating for insulin, you always want to use the unit syringe. So you want to use this syringe. So I'm just going to mark the syringe in general and just see if it gives me credit for answering it there. I don't know if I want you to choose B or here, but we're going to find out together here in just a second. So once you've gone through, you double check all your answers. All answers should be saved, and then we're going to hit submit. And like I said, I should have just missed that one question. We're going to click OK to review results. And you can see I got 27 out of 28. And then the one that I missed was this one here. And that was because, remember, I put my answer with kilograms. So I didn't, I added the unit when it specifically told me not to. Remember on my labeling, so this one I marked on the line, so it was marked correct. That other cup question I marked on the number, so 15, so that was also marked correct. On the tube X was fine, I marked on the line. I marked on the line down here for that, and then for the syringe, I just marked the syringe just on the syringe. because the question is which syringe would you use, not where, like, it didn't tell you specifically to mark anything in particular in the syringe. If I was going to mark anything particular, I just put a mark at 30 because that would encompass the 30 units of regular insulin. So that's how you decipher which ones you miss. Just look for the 0 out of 1. Sometimes what you missed is because you included unit, or you may have forgot a leading 0, or you marked it incorrectly. And if you find that you're missing the same one, let me know which one it is. You can always email me, and then I will make sure to give you some feedback on that, so that way we can kind of remedy and fix what that problem is. So, all right. Well, like I said, I like to keep these just at a half hour. So I will post this onto YouTube later today. I will be back on tomorrow at 4:30, and then Tuesday at 11, and then the following Thursday will be our last meeting before your test. And I'll probably just go through this practice set a couple more times and just kind of see where you're at. So as always, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.